Well, hello everyone. My name is Shahjahan VM. I welcome you to my channel 7 English. In today's video lesson, I am going to give you idea about how to write process or diagram in IELTS Writing Task 1 Academic. Normally, you will have questions, table or chart. However, occasionally you will get asked question about the process or diagram. So before I get into the detail, let me give you what you mean by process or diagram. So in process or diagram, you will have a process or a procedure and the stages how the event takes place during the process or the procedure. Or sometimes you will get to describe an object or an event as well. So there are basically two types of process. One is man-made process, the other one is natural process. So now let me get it started into the detail. Now let's have a look at the type of questions in process or in diagram IELTS Task 1 Academic. Firstly, you will have questions, maybe a question appears in front of you in the form of a process of how the paper and pulp is manufactured. Secondly, sometimes you will have a process of a natural process, for example, life cycle of a silkworm, along with how the silkworm, so how the clothes are produced using the silk as a raw material. So in which one is natural process, the other one is man-made process, the production. Thirdly, you will have questions that appears in front of you in the form of formation or growth of islands in the volcanic islands, how the islands are formed. Okay. Then finally you will have questions like flowchart in the form of flowchart. For example, how the paper clips, the colored paper clips are prepared in a small or manufactured in a small factory. So these are the four ways the question can appear on your question paper from IELTS process or diagram Task 1 Academic. Well, students, I am going to give you 3 important tips how to improve your process or diagram writing Task 1 in Academic. So the 3 main tips which I would like to teach you today. First one is write a clear introduction and overall or overview. The second tip is use appropriate sequencing word. That means the linking expression, sequencing word, that in order to create a logical connection with the process from one stage to the another stage till the final stage. Along with this, you also need to use the adverbials of the time. Okay, like meanwhile, later on, then, next. So I'll come back to it in a while later into detail. And the third and the final tip is use appropriate vocabulary and accurate grammar. So whenever you need to change the sentence from active to passive, so you have to be very careful about the process writing. So grammar, accurate grammar means if the question is about a process in which the object is given more important. Okay, that means the action by whom it is performed. For example, when you have a questions man-made process, so you need to use it in passive voice. Well, when you have the natural process, for example, life cycle of honeybee. Okay, as I said earlier, the life cycle of a silkworm, so you need to use it in active voice. So this is what use appropriate. This is what you mean by use appropriate vocabulary and accurate grammar. Well, students, there are many ways you can write the introduction for it. For example, if you get a process, you can write the introduction, the diagram reveals, or the flowchart describes the way in which the various stages that includes. You can also show, like, write your introduction, the diagram describes the various stages. Okay, and apart from this, the diagram reveals, finally you can also write. So you can use the verbs like illustrates, describes, what the diagram illustrates, describes and reveals, or you can also write the diagram explains the way in which. Okay, so these are the 4 ways you can start writing introduction. So you have to be very careful to write it in simple present tense. You cannot write the diagram is revealing. Okay, so it's very important to use present indefinite or simple present tense at the very beginning of your graph. So once again I'll repeat, diagram reveals, or the process explains the way in which, or the process describes, or the process explains. So these are the words that normally you can write, you can use while you write the introduction. So you have to be very careful about these things the very beginning, because first impression is the last impression. So be careful about how to write the appropriate introduction. Well student, the next thing, as I said in the very first tips, introduction. So along with the introduction, it's very important to write a very good or a very clear overall sentence. So you can write it along with the introduction, because in process there is no need to write separate. Okay, because I normally didn't find anywhere like examiners prepared answer or IELTS certified or 9 band scored answer basically. So you can write the overall paragraph along with the introduction, first sentence and second sentence. Okay, now when you write the overall paragraph, how to write? When you write the overall paragraph, it's very important to write first stages. Okay, so overall the stage starts with, okay, the first stage is, or there are overall general overview, there are 4 main stages, 5 main stages, there are 8 main stages. The first stage start with this, and the final stage, okay, the process end with the final stage, that is. Okay, so this is how you have to write the overall paragraph. So overall there are this much stages. Okay, the process starts with this and ends with this. Okay, this is how. However, you must have heard another contradicting view from somewhere else. For example, in overall paragraph, in process or diagram, there is no need to write the overall. But from my opinion, what I would suggest you, that do not give a summary or a conclusion to it. However, there is no problem even if you write an overall paragraph, and you must write it, because as I said earlier, the assessment criteria which says that clear introduction and clear overview for a band score of 6 and above. Well, the second tip is using the sequencing words and the adverbials appropriately. Use the sequencing words and adverbials appropriately. In this stage, here we can divide it into 3 different stages, like beginning stage, middle stage and ending stage. So during the beginning, you can start with always the process begins with. Okay, the first stage of the process is, or the process commences when. So this is how you have to start the writing first body paragraph. Okay, so when you write process, there is no need to divide body paragraph into 2. Okay, so in case of 2 different, like sometime you will get questions, it appears to be one natural process, another man-made process. As I said at the very beginning, that the production of life cycle of silkworm. Okay, in that case you can write 2 things separately in 2 body paragraph. Of course, that makes sense. So that is what the sequencing word for the first stage. Now next thing is the middle stages. So during the middle stages, so you have to use that the sequencing word. Okay, sequencing words used during the middle stage, it's very important to be very careful about this. Okay, during that stage or the stage that follows. okay, or over the course of the stages, like firstly, secondly, thirdly, and finally, nextly, secondly, thirdly, following this stage. Okay, so this is how you have to use the connecting words or the sequencing word during the middle. So finally, the end part, the process ends with once the process has been completed. Okay, once the process has been completed, when, okay, the process ends with, okay, the process has been completed. Okay, finally, the final stage, okay, when the process has been completed. So this is how you have to use that connecting word, sequencing word during the final stage. Now let me tell you about the adverbials. Adverbials means the adverbs that indicate time. So it's very important to use to show your ability to use the adverbials in the wide range. For example, next, okay, then the second adverbial, meanwhile, consequently. Consequently is as a result, okay, thus, or you can also use what at the end. Okay, so this is how you need to be very careful about using the adverbials. Meanwhile, while, later, then, nextly, later on, afterwards, okay, subsequently, you can also use subsequently. So these are the adverbials of the time. So this is how you need to organize your body paragraph using the sequencing words and the adverbials. Well, the third tip for writing task 1 academic process or diagram is to use appropriate vocabulary and grammar. So, or accurate grammar and appropriate vocabulary. So let me tell you about what I mean by accurate grammar. Accurate grammar, the grammar rules in the case of process or the diagram that changes. For example, you find a process that shows the electricity is produced using the hydroelectric dam. Okay, so turbine, for example, here there are number of components, okay, that are used in order to, or that are used in the process. For example, there are number of ways you will find the way the electricity is generated, like solar, wind. Okay, here let me give an example of how electricity is generated from the hydroelectric dam. So in this case, what you need to use is first think about that grammar. Okay, here it is a man-made process. Okay, so here you need to use simple present passive voice. Simple present passive voice. Once the electricity is generated, okay, or once turbine is connected. Once turbine is connected, or once turbine has been connected to the generator. Okay, then otherwise, another example is once electricity is generated, now comma, then sometimes students usually write once the electricity is generated, put the comma, then they write then. So here there is no need. Once the electricity is generated, comma, what happened then? It is, once the electricity is generated, comma, it is transmitted to the station. Okay, or once the production of electricity has been completed, comma, electricity is transmitted to the station. So here you will find that I used present, simple present passive. So this is only in the case of man-made process. Now the second, that is natural process. Okay, in natural process I said earlier that the silkworm, okay, the larva that feed mulberry leaves. The larva that feed mulberry leaves live up to 6 weeks. Okay, lives up to 6 weeks. Why I used, what tense I used, or what form of sentence I used simple present active voice. Why I used active voice here? Because this is a natural process. This is life cycle of life cycle of a silkworm. So since there is natural process, you need to use simple active voice. Now similarly, the life cycle of honeybee. Okay, for example, the first stage in the life cycle of honeybee starts when it hatches the egg. So you cannot use when the egg is hatched, okay, since it is a natural process. The stage begin with when the honeybee hatches its egg. So this is a very important factor that you need to keep in mind when you think about the process writing grammar. So only passive voice for the man-made process, active voice for the natural process. That is true in the which tense? Simple present tense. Okay, and in the case of that man-made, you can also use present perfect, but it should be in passive form. Okay, so then the next thing is the vocabulary. So in the case of vocabulary is already given. Most of those technical words that incorporate in the process, that must be given in the process itself. So there is no need to bring up words from outside. But you can change the variation. For example, package. The packaging is done. Okay, so you can change the form, the packaging. Okay, packaging is a noun, so you can change it into packaged, so it's a verb. So changing the vocabulary means variations using the wide word formation, so it's very important. So vocabulary in process chart, normally it is already given there. It is information transfer. That is why IELTS task 1 is called a task achievement, whereas task 2 is called a task response, because the input is already given. You don't need to bring it something from outside, so you just need to give the transfer. So you can use the vocabulary that are explicitly given in your, very clearly given in your question paper. So this is what about the accurate grammar and the vocabulary. Yes, well students, you find, as you can see, a question that appears in front of your screen. It shows the process of making matches. Okay, so this is how a process appears in IELTS exam. Writing task 1, you should spend about 20 minutes on this task. The diagram below shows the stages and equipment used in the process of making matches. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Okay, now you can find the question that has a number of parts, like making matches. So several stages are included in it. Okay, first you can identify the stage starts with log, then peeler, then the blade, chopper, then ammonium phosphate, tank, dryer. Okay, then the other stage. Now this is how a question appears in several stages. Then it is going to the blower, then hopper, metal duct, storage area. Okay, then what happens is a perforated steel belt. Okay, then inserter, then the drying area. Okay, then what happens is like it's paraffin wax, tank, based chemicals tank, top chemicals tank, then it's taken to the packaging area, and also it can be directly soon after the drying can also pack. So you need to take a look at the flow of the arrow. Okay, the flow of the arrow, peeler, chopper, like then blower, then what happens, storage area, then perforated steel belt. Okay, then inserter. So this is how paraffin works, based chemicals. So I hope that you understand the question quite well. Now let's take a look at the answer that has been prepared by an IELTS student, and that's scored 9 band by a certified IELTS examiner. Now let me take you through the answer, the model answer, so that you will get an idea in future how to write a process or a diagram. And the question, of course, it is a little bit complicated, but this is how the question appears. Don't worry about after understanding this answer. Of course, I'm sure that you will be 100% confident to write a process in IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. Now, the diagram shows that the process of manufacturing matches has several stages. Okay, so that's the introduction. The diagram shows now the overview. So sometimes it appears without the connecting word. The matchsticks are first cut, prepared, dried and moved to a storage area. After that, they are dipped into several chemicals and dried before being packaged. So you can find that the overall has been divided. I mean the stage, various stages, the events that takes place in stages, and the other stage that clearly separated in the overall. Now the paragraphs, the body paragraph, and there are 2 body paragraph, and each body paragraph starts with appropriate linking expression. The first is in the first stage, in the next stage. Now let's try to find out. In the first phase, comma, a log of wood is placed in a peeler and rotated, while that's the what adverbial of the time, while a flat blade peels a long thin sheet of wood called veneer. Okay, sometimes certain area that words will be given. It's always good to give an explanation to it. From the outer, that's how the veneer is given, a brief like thin sheet of wood called veneer. It's given. From the outer surface of the log, the veneer proceeds to the chopper, which cuts it into small sticks. Okay, these are then soaked, present, simple present, passive voice. These are then soaked in a vat of ammonium phosphate. Okay, then afterwards, that's adverbial of the time. They are placed in a large rotating drum. From there, the matches are dumped into a hopper and blown through a metal duct to the storage area. Now the next stage. So that's how the first that area up to the storage area, from the blower to hopper to the metal duct to the storage area. Now the writer divided the main stages into 2. Now the second stage. In the next stage, the sticks are moved from the storage area and they fall into a funnel shaped device. So a funnel shaped device, you can find that even though that it's not clearly given, but you know, you can make a guess. It looks how it appears to be, or how it looks like. A funnel shaped device which lines them up to be inserted into holes, a long continuous perforated steel belt. As the belt moves along, the tips of the matches are dipped in a series of 3 tanks holding firstly paraffin wax, then chemical, and finally tip chemicals. Next, the belt loops up and down through a drying area in the final step of the process. The matches are packaged. So this is how an answer is well organized. See, every stages are identified and very clearly and accordingly is described in the answer. So this is what you have to do in the process chart. So that's how it is written. So here you can find the passive, what introduction, overall, then the sequencing words with the adverbial of time and the vocabulary. Okay, certain area word need to be explained. For example, funnel shaped, you can't find that expression, but it is just appropriate, and of course it is acceptable you to write there. And of course you find the main stages you can make a since the process has number of stages, so effectively divided the main stages into two in order to make reader very convenient, easy to follow the information. I hope that it's very clear to you from this example. Well students, that's the end of today's lesson. I hope that you understand very well about how to write process IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. If you found this video very helpful and very useful for your further studies, please like, comment and share. And of course, if you're watching my channel for the first time, please do subscribe my channel. See you next time. Till then, bye, take care.